Mercury is 4 degrees into the Capricorn constellation. This transit started late 2025 and will go with us in this early start of 2026. Mercury is the planet of thinking, communicating, and analyzing. Capricorn is the constellation of innovating and creating new ways to obtain practicality, stability, routines, and patterns. So with Mercury in Capricorn, we'll be thinking and communicating about new routines, new limits, and new structures. In general, this means your mind might be more set in responsibilities, limits, boundaries, and ways to be stable, or the communications and relationships around you or that involve you might be more focused, or at least the conversations might be more focused about reality and new perspectives to judge value, efficiency, and organization in your personal life or in whatever case you're talking about. For an example, your conversations not coming from you, this might be coming from you, but also coming from others, might be more about judging the efficiency of the government, judging the safety of something that is in your surroundings, judging the efficiency of a sports team that you guys talk about. Instead of judging them on how cool they are, about their sporting value, their accomplishments on the field, you and your conversations might be more about the value, the money, the infrastructure, their net worth, if they made a good profit or if they lost some money, Your conversations can be more about that, or in a more personal level, your mind might start to present you new ideas to create new routines and patterns, or you might start looking more into the details of your routines and patterns, or you're creating new realistic ways to look at your own mind. On the other side, you might start to see more places where you lack, or you think you lack, some structure, some creativity when it comes to being efficient, practical, and safe. And this can come from yourself, or others might do this on purpose and willingly. They might come at you and directly or indirectly tell you you lack some routine here, you lack some practicality here, or you lack some flexible thought, you lack some communication, you lack some socialization in your routines and in your patterns. Or they might do this unconsciously, where it's like just by you having a conversation with them, or by you hearing about something on the news, through your friends and through your neighbors, you start to think about it. And it's Capricorn, it's Earth. So even though it's cardinal, it's still a process. And it might hit you immediately, but most likely it will be piece by piece, moment by moment. You'll start to gather a realization of like, bro, I could be more efficient here, I could be more productive, I could be more safe here. And then the power of Saturn, the pressure of Saturn, ruler of Capricorn, can come in, and then you might be like, oh, why I didn't do this before? And you might feel a little bit dumb, or like you wasted your time. Or if you're a more positive mindset, you can be like, bro, I don't understand how I didn't thought about this before, but now I can really reap the positive benefits from this experience. And if you are a more spirited individual, you'll realize that you didn't do these things before, or you didn't realize where you could be more efficient, for an example, before in certain areas in your life, because you just didn't gathered or created that awareness before. Maybe you were not ready to have that idea and commit to it, or stick to it, and now you have. So in the past, that idea would have been procrastinated or just thrown away, but now you have the ability to make a change in how you think, communicate, and analyze about routine and pattern, or you can change and create new routines and patterns, new limits and boundaries, networking and association to your thoughts and ideas, and to your mutable way to conversate, socialize, and analyze. The general tarot card for Mercury in Capricorn 2025 and 2026 is the Magician Mercury. So it means that Mercurial energy is a bit more in its element. It feels good with the efficiency, coldness, and personal perspective, realistic approach of Capricorn. Also, Capricorn enjoys Mercury because it brings more clarity, more communication to their personal spaces, and brings more interest to them, to the natural Capricorns or people that dwell in more Capricorn environments, and also brings more communicative energy from others that are outside of Capricorn perspectives or out of Capricorn circumstances, and gives more interest, makes it easier to initiate conversations thoughts and analysis and exchanges of information between people that are already more Capricorn or that spend more time in Capricorn places, and between them and other people that are more outside of those realms. And what do I mean by Capricorn places or Capricorn realms? Realms that deal with routine, pattern, structure, infrastructure, pressure, high expectations, high status, high image, high skill, high risk, high reward, maintaining something in a creative but consistent way. And Mercury here, the magician, reveals the power to transmute and direct any energy or circumstance in your favor, but only if you can imagine and act on those terms, because a lot of people, they stop their own imaginations when it's about something good for themselves or for their situation. Some people think way more about others than themselves. So even though now there is the ability to use your mind and how you communicate and analyze to transmute and direct your circumstances and your own mind in a more realistic way, if you are not very personal or realistic, or if you don't have care, the balancing energy of Capricorn, more about yourself, you will end up directing your situation and your energy into others' benefits or into a void or into a place where there will be no sufficient accumulation for manifestation and materialization. So first, apply personal limited boundaries to focus a bit more on you, because that might sound egotistical, but Capricorn is still Earth element, and Earth is abundant, Earth is for everybody to share. But if nobody is creating, taking care, and maintaining or upgrading the Earth element, nobody can profit. So right now, everybody can use their mind to initiate new routines and patterns, to initiate new realistic perspectives and conversations. But you gotta start on your own space. You gotta start in your own way to transmute and direct energies, specifically thoughts, ideas, and conversations, into areas where you can create more stability, more realism, and yet maintain innovation in conversations and thoughts, or start to believe, start to tell yourself and imagine and walk, talk, and be in certain places, states, or circumstances where you can see yourself or you already are in a place to upgrade, not just innovate, not just change, but upgrade your limits and your boundaries or your responsibilities. On the negative side, this means that your mind can be transformed by pressure, responsibility, and dryness. So if you don't have a strong or flexible enough mind, the new pressures, new responsibilities, or at least new looks and perspectives about boundaries, status, and networking, they can change your mind. And when things change your mind that are not you, that becomes a problem, because you are not your mind. That's your mind, it belongs to you. But if you are not in control or in compatibility terms with your mind, you might be in the right path and your mind struggles to recognize that. You might be on the wrong path and your mind struggles to recognize that. You might think you are doing what's the best for you, but maybe you don't have your mind all in the same place because it's scattered, because your mind is too worried creating thoughts and ideas about scarcity or how to please somebody, how to keep a situation, how to keep a job that is not entirely beneficial for you because you feel pressed, you feel stressed, you feel like you gotta do it like you used to do, or you gotta do it in a certain way that does not benefit your energy and spirit just to maintain that stability. And keep in mind, it's Mercury in Capricorn. So our minds will be geared towards maintaining or innovating routines and patterns, coming up with new conversations or ideas to maintain or update your physical security and safety. But with the magician, you have the power to change at least your mind. You don't need to change your circumstance, you don't need to change your conversations and relationships, but you have the power to change your mind, or through your mind change yourself and your surroundings in a more mutable, pleasurable way as well, if you use your mind and ways to think, communicate, and analyze into more creative and innovative, realistic and structured ways to maintain, obtain, or upgrade your security, your privacy, and your structure. If you have Sun, Moon, Rising, or Mars in Aries, you are now squaring Mercury in Capricorn. That means that you are learning how to think and communicate in more serious, responsible, and realistic ways, and others are learning how to approach you and think about you in a more realistic and structured way. Aries is cardinal fire, so it's about creating visions, imaginations, and driving action out of spirituality and creativity. Capricorn, cardinal earth, it's about creating routines and patterns, business, status, network, and organization. So the clash comes from there. So others are learning how to see your uniqueness, your individuality, creativity, aggressiveness, and passion in a more realistic and responsible way, while you are learning how to not lose your individuality, not lose your passion, but translate it in communications and relationships in a more serious, calculative, and realistic way. And the tarot card for Aries, for Mercury in Capricorn 2025 and 2026, is the Six of Swords. That means that you are creating new realistic ways to think and communicate about yourself and reality in more consistent, authoritarian, and attracting attention, pleasure, and just eyes, views from others into your own ways of thinking, communicating, and analyzing. So you might be learning how to communicate, associate yourself, and analyze about reality and about structure in a serious way, but still maintaining some flexibility, lightness, and entertainment. Or others are learning how to figure out and make sense out of your communication, out of your networking skills, and mostly they're trying to bring attention to you or to themselves about the spirituality, creativity, passion, and frustration that are behind your communication, your networking, and your association, or behind how you do those things, or why you do those things in the way you do, or just why you do them in the first place. Also, this means that you might be bringing yourself more authority, more responsibility, more consistency, and stubbornness to how you think and communicate about yourself and about the world. This might bring some blockages, this might bring some insecurity or some stubbornness, but in the end of the day, if you keep applying your creativity and your originality, your passion and your aggressiveness in realistic or about realistic terms and perspectives, you will develop more attention, more authority, better perspectives, and you'll be seen and heard in better ways about reality and structure, while making you and others more open to receive, care, and be curious about your uniqueness, individuality, creativity, desires, passions, and motivations. This might also mean that others or external sources might be trying to pay more attention and derive conclusions about your networking, communication, and association status, and they might achieve certain conclusions about yourself, about your purposes, creativity, and spirituality from how you communicate about structure and reality, or from how others communicated to them about your structure and your reality. And those perspectives might be wrong because they are judging you based on your structure or based on how you communicate about structure, and they might not really get the full perspective and the starting point about yourself or even your structure. But keep in mind, with the Six of Swords, there will be more attention brought to your way to communicate and analyze. So it's up to you to learn the balance point to create and apply your limits and boundaries, so you can keep your own authority over your mind while allowing others to participate in your mind or to have space in your mind in order to achieve or maintain structure, status, and associations in new, realistic, and profitable ways. And also, you are learning how to tell others and show others your limits and boundaries in a way that it's not so destructive, scary, or expressive, while maintaining the passion and the purpose. But then you're gonna communicate, you are learning to show your authority, to show your consistency in the mental realm, in the social realm, in a more relatable, pleasurable, and sophisticated way. If you have Taurus, Sun, Moon, Rising, or Venus, you are now trining Mercury in Capricorn. That is a gift to think, communicate, and analyze in new and creative ways, while maintaining the stability, the privacy, the sophistication, and the status of the Earth element. Taurus is ruled by Venus, so it's still pretty much about communication and relatability. So Mercury in Capricorn is also a gift for Taurus to expand a little bit and improve and indulge a bit more into communicating. But Taurus sometimes they create this style of communication that doesn't really reveal everything. Most times it's because Taurus are insecure or they just like to keep their own unique way to obtain and maintain stability and support, for an example, to themselves or to the ones really close to them that they seem worthy. But with Mercury in Capricorn, not only is a gift for Taurus to open up, but also the external world will be more open to communication about Taurus elements or about Tauruses themselves. And also, it will be easier popping up in others' minds, and most likely if you are a Taurus in those planets, in your personal surroundings, you'll be popping up more in people's minds. It might not just be about you particularly, it might be about your circumstance, about your vibe, about how realistic and organized you are. But the point here is that Tauruses might not still feel very open to communication, but others might force Taurus into be more communicative, a bit lighter, a bit more social, without all the safety nets and pleasure conjunctures that Tauruses think they need in order to be open and associative. So this gift might bring some forcing, might be bringing some uncomfortability, but it's still a gift. It's just that Saturn element and that more cardinal and non-predictable element coming in to help Tauruses be a bit more open. That might bring some cases where Taurus initiate conversations and they expose a bit too much, not in general, but to their own senses of privacy and safety. So Tauruses might feel a bit, sometimes, that they expose themselves, they made a mistake in showing some sort of information or some clues that they think will lead others to thinking certain ways about their status and their privacy and their desires. But in the end of the day, if you are not going too far with any type of desires, stubbornness or insecurity, most likely this will be healthy little hiccups that might scare you a little bit, but in the end of the day will help you create new, sophisticated and realistic ways to think, communicate and analyze about yourself and your unique, fixed and stubborn way to obtain and maintain stability, support, pleasure and privacy. And the tarot card for you, Taurus, in Mercury in Capricorn 2025 and 2026 is the Prince of Swords. This means you have a gift to create a new external way to be associative and mutable with your thoughts, ideas, ways to socialize and ways to analyze. Also, it might mean that you are creating more space to initiate new practical, realistic, and business-minded way to receive others' associations and communications about their own thoughts, ideas, and ways to socialize and analyze about reality, structure, and productivity, or in realms that deal with networking, business, and association in more realistic and serious terms. If you have Sun, Moon, Rising or Mercury in Gemini, you are in conjuncting Mercury in Capricorn 2025 and 2026. The thing is, Mercury is the ruler of Gemini. Gemini is the external, more masculine and expressive side of Mercury. So even though you are misunderstanding or being misunderstood, you still have an easier time to connect, communicate and analyze in a clear, cold and detached way. So here you might be misunderstanding how you and others are communicating and associating in new ways that are more responsible and more serious. This might cause you some issues. You might not be able to read the room so well, or you might be thinking you're reading the room and others and your own responsibilities and relationships in the right way, but you might be misunderstanding some purposes, some limits and boundaries that you or others are setting in a clear way through communication, clear communication, direct communication. But Capricorn is still Earth, the internal side of Saturn, so those limits and boundaries, those ideas, those status might be communicated to you or around you in more subtle ways, and you might not be able to really understand them or see them in full picture. On the other side, others might be misunderstanding you and how you think, communicate, and analyze in a more associative, mutable, or scattered way about relationships, thinking, analyzing in a logic, cold, and detached way, because you're coming in very light, you're coming in a bit cold perhaps, maybe they don't feel you so serious, so interested, or so committed to new ideas or new perspective to already going structure, networking, and association. And the tarot card for this transit is Aquarius, the Star. So the Star is all about you recognizing and being recognized, or doing so, or at least wishing to be recognized by your own unique way to think, communicate, and analyze in a fixed or stubborn way about structure, reality, society, rules, limits, and boundaries, while always in good faith, striving for progress, humanitarianism, helping others, and making things cooler, lighter, more efficient, while keeping its individuality and uniqueness. The star can also symbolize you recognizing your own uniqueness or individuality, or others, your surroundings, recognizing your uniqueness or individuality, and then you developing the need, the want to associate with other groups of stars that you seem to recognize that they are also unique and individual, or you want to associate yourself with a group of thought, a group of people, a school, a movement that is unique and individual to you, that talks and cares and expresses about structure, reality, change, opposition, in order to obtain progress, justice, fairness, equality, or certain groups, certain associations, certain constellations might look at you and develop new ways, new realistic and structured ways to see and value you, and then they might want to make you, or your mind, your structure, your idea, a part of their constellation. So keep in mind the misunderstandings, the miscommunications, because you might create new ideas and communications about structure and value. You might create new commitments and new responsibilities that involve your mind, your thoughts, and your ideas with a group or a situation that it looked unique, and maybe it's unique, but maybe it's not your meat and potatoes. Maybe it's not as deep as you want it to be. Maybe it's deeper than you want it to be. Maybe it's not as stable and real as it looked. Maybe they used words, keywords, they used certain type of rewards, status that made that organization, group, or idea look better, more solid, and more real than it actually is. Or others might see you more or less real than you are. They might misjudge you. They might misjudge your way of thinking, communicating, analyzing, and associating, and you do it in a more cold, light, but also easier and better vibes way. And they might think that that will be profitable for new commitments and new responsibilities in their group, in their structure. And then once they really get to know you, or once they get in business with you, they might realize you're a bit more scattered, less committed, or less interested than what they desired. And the thing is, it's up to you to realize the value, the uniqueness, and individuality in yourself, or in those groups, or associations, or structures, then it's up to you to be like, no, this is something I really want to commit. This is something I really want to be a part of. And then you must clear the misunderstanding and show in a unique and consistent and sometimes stubborn way why you value or wish to be valued, or why you are valuable to a certain cause, routine, pattern, or organization. So it will force you and others to create new thoughts and ideas about you or their organization that are more real, valuable, profitable, or insecure. And it's about you to judge the uniqueness of the situation and see if it's valuable for you to clear the misunderstanding, to work on that. Or if you just should let that opportunity, that association, that unique structure, or apparently unique structure, go away so you can create new routines and boundaries with your mind and relationships in places and areas that you really want to commit, and you really feel like your communication and your skills are going to be valuable and efficient. If you have Sun, Moon, Rising or Jupiter in Cancer, you are opposing Mercury in Capricorn 2025 and 2026. So you might feel opposed by others' new, creative and structured ways to think, communicate and analyze. Or you might find yourself thinking and communicating in more dry, limited and under pressure ways. But you can bring balance, you can bring hope into those areas by bringing your new ways to create emotions, feelings, purpose, hope, and spirituality. Also, you can bring more emotional comfort and emotional readiness into places and areas of your life or your surroundings where you need or want to have serious conversations about serious matters, about serious changes, about serious upgrades, or about serious limits and boundaries that must be upheld and present. And you might be going too far or not far enough because of the opposition. You're still finding balance, you're still finding your way through into the middle ground, into the best possible option. And then you and others will be creating this dynamic where you are more emotional, they are more realistic, then you express more realistic status or conversations, and then they become a bit more emotional and they start to look at yours and their own purpose or new emotions and feelings behind new conversations that involve routine and pattern or some sort of stability focused matter. And in the end of the day, it's really up to you to go a bit out of your comfort zone, to create in yourself and in your surroundings new ways to think, communicate and analyze that are more realistic and structured, and for you to develop more care, new emotions and feelings, aka using your own Cancer power in areas of communication and networking that are more in the areas themselves of structure, optimizing, networking, association, and status. And your tarot card is Justice. So this means you might not feel like others are doing you justice. You might not feel like the external world is valuing you rightly. You might think they are not seeing the value that you have, or you might think others are overvaluing you and placing too many expectations, responsibilities, and pressure upon you, or you might feel like they're not giving you enough responsibility, they're not giving you a big enough of a role, or they're not giving you all the information, all the know-how, they're not giving you all the communication in certain areas, specifically if they involve business or status. Or you might be getting too moody, too internal, and too insecure because you feel a certain way, you feel justified in certain emotions, in certain moods, but you seem to not find the way to communicate and analyze it in a more realistic, structured, and responsible, also serious way. Also, this means you might feel like the world and your surroundings are creating new senses of value, safety, and profitability in communicating and analyzing things out of your realm, things out of your place of comfort, things that you think don't seem to do with you, things that you think don't need you to be a part of, things that are not close to you. So you might feel forced to enforce your own sense of justice and value upon yourself and others, or you might wish or need for others to assert to you that you are valuable, and you need to see the purpose through communication. You need to see the reasoning, emotionally and spiritual, about how others see value in you, because you might be too emotional or too moody, and you might not be understanding the reasoning behind these more realistic and structured communications and relationships. So you might need to go through a little bit of some extreme thoughts or ideas, or you might just be gifted by the world to an example that will help you create more just, balanced, and sophisticated mindsets to help you balance your emotional mind with the realistic mind that the world desires right now, so you can do yourself, your new emotions, and new spiritual places of comfort justice. If you have Sun, Moon, or Rising in Leo, you are in conjuncting Mercury in Capricorn. This means that you are misunderstanding or being misunderstood by conversations and ways of thinking and analyzing that are more creative but associated with reality, structure, and business. This can come from the fact that Leo is fixed fire and Capricorn is cardinal earth. That means that Leo is more about fixed or consistent ways to show and be spirited, creative, sentimental, and imaginative, and Capricorn is about creating new ways to be stable, private, and secure. So the inconjunction comes from how you communicating or how others are receiving and creating new realistic ways to interpret your expressions, communications, ideas, and even how you relate to others or just whom you're relating to. In general, you might be misunderstanding others because they want to think and communicate in serious ways, and they might seem limited and opposing to you, but also you might just be misunderstanding them. They might not be actually that serious. They might be not so committed to a certain circumstance, limit, or boundary. You might just feel that way, or you might just reach those conclusions in your mind because you feel like your expression, your spirited energy, your uniqueness and your individuality might not be received as much as you would like them to be, in a more way that celebrates and makes you feel like you received attention in a profitable way. And you might just need to adapt a little bit here and realize that now we are communicating and analyzing in more realistic ways, but that does not mean that your Leo energy is blocked or that it's not useful. And others might be misunderstanding you because they see you too egotistical, too sentimental, or not caring enough about the circumstances and the reality that they are caring about, or that they should think you should be caring about. You know what I'm saying? Or that they think you should be caring about. So perhaps people are expecting a bit more from you when it comes to be more realistic and more serious, but maybe you don't even need to be like that. People just think that way because that's how the world is kind of reacting right now to thinking, communicating, and analyzing. You can still find opportunities for balance here because in the middle of all inconjunctions there is common ground, and the common ground here is the consistency between Leo and Capricorn. Both like to build, both like to be safe first in certain approaches and connections. Both Leo and Capricorn like to be seen in a certain way, and they like to protect and keep feeding that image to themselves and others. Just Leo is a bit more social, unique, and individual, and Capricorn is a bit more private, more individual as well, but more on their own. Leo likes to group more and likes to be a part of things more. Leo likes to be the center of things, and sometimes they need to be, even if they're not comfortable with that. While Capricorn, they don't mind being in the background, but the need is like an aspect or a fact or something that they did or something that somebody else recognized to feed their image that they are useful and they are an important part of the team or the occasion, even though they are not directly participating as much as, for example, Leos sometimes have to do. Sometimes Leos have to participate more. They have to be the face of things more, to receive and expand their progress and do connections, while Capricorns sometimes they want to be more Aquarius and Leo-like. They want to be more recognized and seen in broad daylight, but they also don't mind just sitting back, helping here and there, making things a bit more efficient, making things more secure. Or sometimes Capricorns, by not acting, they actually achieve progress because they're upholding limits and boundaries. Something that Leos sometimes have a hard time realizing is that they don't really need to act all the time. They don't need to be expressive all the time. They don't need to be the center of the time all the time. Sometimes just being there, shining their light or receiving attention is good enough. Just like for Capricorns, sometimes just limiting certain aspects, just not doing something, is a way to achieve progress. And because this is a Mercury reading, it means that perhaps Leos here are learning or have the opportunity to realize the value of silence and strategical communication in realms of business and structure. And the tarot card for your Leos in this transit is the Hanged Man, ruled by Neptune, and this is very subconscious, internal, and even unconscious vibes. So what I said about Leos learning or using this opportunity, this in conjunction to explore or just go through communications and thoughts that require less action, less expressiveness, and less masculinity, because the Hanged Man, it's all about exploring and just being exposed to subconscious patterns, to spiritual natures. And the Hanged Man symbolizes the mind, or the more logical sides of the mind, not really being able to move. The Hanged Man usually means being expressive, being logical, being masculine. So the man is hanged. So it doesn't mean hanged as in the penalty sentence, the death penalty, but just hanged in a way that he cannot move, or he cannot move as much. So your mind might feel a bit more limited, or you might feel that you can't reach so far into the logical mind, or others just think that way about you because they were expecting or they need you to be more logical, to create new ways to be secure. And because you are still exploring, going through the misunderstandings, diving and swimming through your subconscious realm, you might not be as present, logical, and structured as the world might need you or how they think you should be. So that doesn't really mean that it's bad or like that you have to go and meet those standards or expectations of the external world. First, you should start about yourself in a more internal way. And that can be another misunderstanding between Leos and Capricorns. Because Leo, sometimes you just want to show, or others want to see you, or they focus attention into you. And sometimes that makes Leos, by default, sometimes it's not even their intention, to just pay more attention to the external realm, to what others are saying, what others are paying attention to, judging if what Leos are paying attention to is valuable and worth it, or if the attention they are receiving is valuable and worth it. And sometimes you just have to get those standards, get those principles and values from within you, and then express them in a consistent way, instead of using the feedbacks from the external realm or from what you think about the external realm to generate your core set of standards and values. So the Hanged Man is really telling you that even though this might be the cause of misunderstandings, or even though you are going through misunderstandings or others are misunderstanding you, if you focus in creating new, practical and realistic ways to think and communicate about your subconscious realm, about your spiritual patterns, natures and desires, you can clear those misunderstandings, at least in your terms. Because if others misunderstand you, it's not really your business to try and dissolve those misunderstandings, because you might not even be able to. They might be too dense, they might be emotionally perturbed, they might have cognitive dissonance, for an example, or maybe they just don't want to change their mind, they just want to be right. But you, as a Leo right now, you have to be more, or you can be more personal and more internal, and care more and respect more your internal space, and then derive new logical and private conclusions about spirituality, about the spiritual purposes of maybe others' communications in new ways about reality and structure. And then you can understand what is causing and originating the misunderstandings between you and the world and vice versa, or you can just make yourself feel more confident and be more clear and walking in your own nature because you know that the misunderstandings are not true or they don't affect your image and perspective about yourself, your uniqueness and your value in realms of reality and, for example, trading or business or marketing. So this can perturb a little bit though your ability to be expressive at first. You might have some doubts, you might have some extra thoughts, or when communicating you might have some hiccups, or you might be too expressive with your body language, and others might get weird messages from you, because the Hanged Man means that the subconscious, spiritual and emotional, are more present and more active than the mental and logical aspects. And Mercury also represents body language. It represents communication. So body language is a form of communication. And because the subconscious realm is more present within you or within your awareness, you might just express more of your subconscious patterns and natures through your body language, through certain signs, through certain reactions, through certain sounds, like certain that might express certain intents that you were not even aware of, and that can cause misunderstandings. Maybe you start misunderstanding yourself. It's like, oh, why I'm showing care? Why I'm showing not care? Why I'm showing limits and boundaries? Why I'm feeling limit and boundary here? Because also you might be misunderstanding others' body languages and others like signs and approaches and ways to communicate or what they are communicating about. And you might feel and get certain hints about their spiritual purpose and emotional realm. And then it's up to you to create logical ways to interpret that or to create limits and boundaries so you don't care and don't invest yourself so much into that. So in the end of the day, the Hanged Man, Mercury and Capricorn, in conjuncting the Leos, is an opportunity to create new ways to understand or new ways to protect you from thinking and communicating in realms of business and structure. So in other words, you have the opportunity to learn how to value in new and more sophisticated ways, or how to judge the value in more creative ways about the relationships, conversations, and subjects of the relationships and conversations in the realms of structure and business. So then, if you judge the value correctly, you can then try and clear the misunderstandings, try and go deeper in this Hanged Man energy to understand the spiritual origin, the starting point of the conversations and of the business being done. Or if you judge that conversation, relationship or association in realms of practicality, if you judge that to not be worth it enough, you then create a new way through communication, thinking and analyzing to limit and boundary your access and the attention that you give and receive in those conversations and relationships if they're not worth your time and energy in realms of practicality and business. If you have Sun, Moon, Rising, or Mercury in Virgo, you are trining Mercury in Capricorn 2025 and 2026. This is an interesting alignment because Mercury is the ruler of Virgo, Virgo being its internal, more feminine and receiving side. So there is a trine between Virgo and its ruler, so it's an easier flow of energy to think, communicate and analyze. But it's in the earth element, so about more serious matters, about matters that deal with responsibility or your ability to be safe and have a predictable income, structure or support system, for an example, or just a general easier way or more likelihood to think about reality, structure, money, infrastructure, efficiency. And because Virgo has the mutable element, it's a bunch of mixing and mingling your own way to think about reality and structure with others, and vice versa. It's also easier for others to now, when initiating new routines and patterns, or in surroundings, imagine somebody in their job is initiating a new routine and pattern, or the job itself, the business, the structure initiated a new routine and pattern or a new limit, then it's easier for them to try and associate their own new reality or perspective about it with how you organize or not organize yourself, for an example. So it's easier for others to mix and mingle with you and see you as a safe, inspiring, or just somebody that is able to receive. But you might not be actually, because you're also going through creating new routines and patterns and new ways to think and communicate about them. So first, you are claiming your space, you're clearing your space, so you might not even be available until the end of this transit, for an example, to be so mixing and mingling with others. And you are learning, or you have an easier time to learn, to apply new limits and boundaries, or to communicate them in a more serious but also sophisticated way. Keep in mind that the Sun and Mars are also in Capricorn, so because you are trining Capricorn and Mercury rules Virgo as well, it's easier for you to give and receive in an extreme way those energies of Mars and Sun, especially Mars, because Mars is exalted in Capricorn, so you might be too extreme when applying or creating and communicating new limits and boundaries or new responsibilities, or you might be extremely insecure and judging yourself in a non-valuable way, so you don't apply limits and boundaries and you let the environment, others, and even yourself to contract you and limit you in your own way to communicate in and about reality. And the thing is, it might not even be real when you are being limited and suppressed. You just might be too harsh on yourself, or you might be thinking about too many things at the same time that are not really important or not really profitable for you. Because with Mercury in Capricorn, it's also about creating new ways to think about value and creating new ways to judge if something is valuable or not. And because you are trining Capricorn and Mercury rules Virgo, it's very easy for you to now initiate new ways to judge yourself and your value, and also the efficiency and the purpose of your routines, patterns, limits, networking, and association. So at the end of the day, it's a good energy. You can create new ways to be more clear and have more structure, but also because of your mutable element and Mercury ruling Virgo as well, it's going to be very easy for you, others, and your surroundings to initiate new thoughts, conversations, ideas, and ways to analyze yourself that are new, fresh, realistic, and serious. So you might create more doubts. Others might, even non-intentionally, just by you interacting with them and having certain conversations, they might say certain keywords, or them exposing their organization and their structure to you. You then might start second questioning yourself, or harshly judging yourself and even others, but more yourself. Virgos are a bit more self-damaging than externally damaging and judging, but they still do that. Doesn't mean they don't, but they do it more to themselves in general. So just by interacting with the environment, you might create new thoughts and new ideas that can make you doubt yourself and just don't see value in yourself and in your routines and patterns. And that's okay, actually. What it's not okay is you being dominated and defeated by those thoughts, because you, by having Virgo in these alignments, you can work with those energies. It's your superpower to alchemize and upgrade those energies by mixing them together in a certain process. You then create a more efficient way to do that. Just like Pisces, your opposing sign, they can take a lot of weird energies, toxic emotions and relationships, but by alchemizing them and processing them in a specific process, they can create happiness, love, $1 million, a movie. But my point is the possibilities. And you have, just like Pisces do in the emotional and spiritual realm, you can do in the mental and realistic realm. So even if a lot of doubts pop up, or a lot of lacking energy in your routines and patterns pop up in your mind, it doesn't mean they are exactly like that. It just means you now have more perspective and more awareness in how to improve yourself and your routines and your patterns. And most likely, because it's Mercury in Capricorn, it will be more focused in improving your mind. So you might see certain aspects of your mind that you don't enjoy, or are not profitable, or they are too self-punishing and self-judging. And instead of you being afraid or scared or defeated by that, you're not gonna be like, oh, I can fix that right now. There is a gift between me and Mercury in Capricorn. I can create a new, realistic, and valuable way to think and communicate about myself, routines, and patterns. So make sure to use that power for show, for show. You know what I'm saying? And your tarot card for this transit is the Seven of Cups. So you are separating from old spaces of emotion, spirituality, connection, and attachment, so you can be inspired and choose your next space of emotion, spirituality, and attachment that you want to travel or into or create in your environment. This makes a lot of sense because Capricorn is cardinal earth, so creating new situations, creating something new. And when you create something new, most of the times you'll be detaching from something old, or you're gonna be renovating and upgrading what was old so it can take a new shape and form and serve you in a new purpose. So Seven of Cups, it's usually a transition. It's not like just leaving something behind, forget about it, just destroy it. It's usually, especially Mercury, Capricorn, you have Virgo in Sun, Moon, Rising, or Mercury. So this Seven of Cups is about making sense, taking the good things from your old emotional spaces, good conclusions, good wisdom, good memories, good feelings, good moments, and using those as a reference, using those as the principle and the building block, create or travel into a new emotional space. That those are the basis, those are the minimum standards, and then you're gonna strive to achieve or maintain something more on an emotional realm. This also might mean that new routines, new patterns, and new ways to think, communicate, and analyze about reality can make you feel in a different way while still looking back and realizing how good it was before, but now you have the opportunity to make it better. Or you can realize that you were already in a better emotional or physical place when it comes to finances, routines, and patterns, but you haven't realized that yet. So you separated from an old feeling, from an old subconscious perspective, into a new perspective that makes you realize or feel better, more consistent perhaps, more efficient, or more valued than before. Because Seven of Cups doesn't mean you are getting into a new situation, it just might be getting you to a new feeling. Maybe you are getting into a newer level of depth. Maybe you are not aware of many things that relate to spirituality, emotions, feelings, dreams, and illusions in areas of business, routine, networking, health, and organization. And now you might be going deeper. You go from a place that was more surface level and you go into a place where you yourself create or through communications are exposed to deeper wisdom and knowledge, deeper recognition and understanding of yours and others' emotional subconscious patterns, and yours and others' spiritual natures and desires and the purposes. Also, maybe now you have a great perspective to clearly think and communicate and realize in a logical way yours and others' purposes, emotions, feelings, dreams, and illusions behind their new routines and patterns, or behind yours and theirs new ways to think and communicate about routine, pattern, limit, and structure. If you have Sun, Moon, Rising, Venus, and Saturn in Libra, you are squaring Mercury in Capricorn. You are learning how to create new ways to think and communicate in more practical and private ways, and others are learning how to think about you in a more valuable and structured way without demanding you to lose your creativity, your originality, and your sophisticated and light way to communicate and socialize. In the end of the day, these are very similar energies though, even though they square, even though there is some tension, because Saturn, the ruler of Capricorn, is exalted in Libra. That means that Libras can go too far, or they can limit themselves too much with Saturn energies. For example, association, networking, developing a routine and pattern, and a group of limits and boundaries to achieve a certain goal or to separate from a certain circumstance. So Libras can go too hard into caring for status and developing ways to show status in a sophisticated way, and they can go too far in judging others based on their status, their relationship, what they're wearing, what their parents did, what their parents talk about, or they can just limit themselves too much and they can allow reality, networking, and association to perturb their ability to be creative with thinking and communicating in a creative way. Capricorns, on the other side, also a lot about communication, creating new ways to communicate, creating new ways to associate, to relate, and to engage in relationships of value, safety, and security. Very, very similar energies, but Capricorn is more internal, more responsible, and more serious, and Mars is exalted in Capricorn, and Mars is kind of the opposite, also balancing aspect of Venus, the ruler of Libra in this case. So Libra is learning to be like themselves, but a step further into reality, dedication, and like really caring and committing and withstanding certain limits, certain boundaries and responsibilities to achieve a goal, to build something, or to make themselves more valuable and more worth it, or with more worth, to create associations and relationships that can provide value or safety. And how Libras learn how to do that? By sacrificing a little bit their openness in their mind and in their conversations. So keeping the energy focused, keeping the air element focused in a space, in a certain environment, and then use the cardinal energy to reshape and restructure how you approach that environment or the environment itself. This can be a relationship, a job, you are a part of a team, you are a part of a group trying to achieve something. So instead of being more open outside of that, whatever you're working on, whatever your safety depends on, whatever your status depends on, you then use the Libra energy in a more realistic and structured way to change that specific circumstance and situation, or to change yourself and how you think and communicate in those realms. So in the end of the day, this can be resumed into a couple of words, which is commitment, which is already a key word for Libra, but Capricorns, they go extra into commitment when they are interested. Capricorns kind of share that with Aquarius. If they are interested in something, they are the best in the world. If they are not interested about something, they don't give a fuck. They can try all they want. If they don't get interested, or if somebody is not able to make them interested, they can do it, but in you can feel there is not that extra element that Capricorns and Aquarius bring. It's just a normal activity, just a normal way to approach stuff. And what changes between Aquarius and Capricorn is how they see interest. Capricorn, they will be interested in the situation or relationship if it's profitable, if it's safe, and if it's practical. And Aquarius will be interested in a relationship or situation if it's unique, if it gives them space to be themselves and express themselves, and if it still gives them structure while being creative and flexible and social. Libras here are learning how to go into those areas where Capricorn really care about and leave behind a bit of the fairness sometimes as well. Because Mars is exalted in Capricorn, so Libras are also learning here to be more reckless, but without sacrificing structure and status. But if your status depends on it, your safety, your privacy depends on it, you really have to now be a bit more aggressive, cold, and serious in your communication, and even in how you think, because sometimes Libras are afraid to go too deep into thinking and judging and analyzing. But now in Capricorn, especially because Mars is also in Capricorn, and the Sun and Mercury, you kind of have to. I don't like to say that in my readings you have to, because everybody has a different circumstance, but Libras here, they really have to develop that more serious, more shielded way to think, even about not just communicating and showing others, ooh, look at my limits and my boundaries, look at my protection, you can't get me, right? No, it's more about keeping it cute externally, but keeping it sturdy internally. because Capricorn is the feminine side of Saturn, the more internal side of Saturn. So that's a way that actually Libras can relate a bit better with the extreme energy of Mars, is to keep it internally or keep it external in very specific and calculated circles, groups, and associations. So that is all very profitable for Libras, because then they can feel free and safe in the external realm, because they've built up a fortress or a very efficient process in their mind and in how they think about themselves and circumstances. On the other side, people in the external world are learning how to approach and receive Libra's communication in a more valuable and serious way without sacrificing the lightness and sophistication of Libra. Because if that would happen, it wouldn't be Libra, it wouldn't be cardinal air, it would be something else. And in business, in structure, even in your privacy, when it comes to being realistic and efficient, new ways to think and communicate that are more sophisticated are very, very valuable, and that those are the things that help you endure. Saturn being exalted in Libra, right? But Capricorn sometimes, or areas that come out of the Capricorn energy, courtrooms, law, finance dudes, financial infrastructures, financial mindset in general, things like that, they sometimes miss the point, or they can't see the value in Libra-like energies, because they think that things must be upheld in a certain way, so they can keep working, so they can make more money, so they can have more structure, and they keep renovating and being more creative with the limits and boundaries, with the contracts, with the written material, but they are missing fresh communication and more sophisticated ways to do business. That's why many times in the world we can see certain companies, studios, and even governments be very out of touch with what the environment around them needs, aka their country, for an example, because they are rejecting, or they didn't see the value in the society or in the new sophisticated way that society is thinking about. So the world is now learning how to communicate and analyze in realistic ways while being open to new sophisticated ideas. And the tarot card for Libras, for Mercury in Capricorn 2025-2026, is the Two of Cups. This symbolizes more relatability, more relationship, more connection in realms of emotion, spirit, and profound vulnerability and creation. And because we are talking about Mercury in Capricorn, this means that you are creating new thoughts, ideas, and conversations in realms of structure and practicality that are more deep, they have more juice to it, they have more intention, more energy, more reach even. You might be talking about business, money, numbers, structures, measures to take about your company or whatever, but in the end, Libras have the opportunity to learn how to do those conversations, how to think and communicate about reality, business, and structure, but in a way that brings more purpose or is more purposeful in a spiritual and emotional level. Or Libra are learning just to think that way about business, about practicality, about new routines for privacy. Libras are learning here to bring more relatability, or to find more relatability in those areas, while bringing some emotion, while bringing some spirituality. And very important is the purpose. So Libras also can create or see in new ways the purpose behind communications and conversations in realms of structure and practicality that are also creative. Or that means that whoever you're conversating to, whoever you are associated in areas that deal with your privacy and the ability to sustain yourself, is learning or is already seeing the purpose, the background, and the fulfillment that you give them or that exists in your relationship already. When it comes to conversating and thinking about you or with you, sharing ideas, coming to a conclusion together in areas of business and practicality. And then it's the Two of Cups, So that means that you might need, or you want, or you'll just go into those aspects, into those circumstances, which is finding just more relationships, more conversations that are more spiritual and emotional in terms of practicality and stability. Or, like I said earlier, you might not actually be creating more relationships and more conversations, but you're creating a more purposeful, internal, and spiritual way to approach, see, or be approached and be seen in those conversations and those exchanges of ideas, information, or when you're working together to change something in your business, in a company, or you're working together to apply a limit and boundary or to create limits and boundaries to make something more efficient or more safe. You'll then be able to communicate or be communicated to in a more realistic way the purpose and the reason and the meaning behind those conversations, ideas, or team working scenarios. If you have Sun, Moon, Rising, Mars, Uranus, or Pluto in Scorpio, you are sextiling Mercury in Capricorn. And with that, you have opportunities to create new ways to think, communicate, and analyze in more practical, serious, and responsible ways, and the external world have the opportunity to think about you or to communicate about you or to interpret the communications that they receive from you in a more serious, realistic, and practical way. This can be good for you because Scorpio, fixed water, accumulates a lot of emotions, a lot of grudges, a lot of desires. So now you can create a more serious, private, and also efficient way to communicate and associate those deep desires or intense emotions. And it's a bit easier for others to commit and to see where you're coming from, even though they don't understand it fully, even though they might not see as deep as it goes, they can see the care or they can see the fragility and the intensity of the situation, conversation in this case, because Mercury, and they are more open to offer or create together with you support, reality, and clarity so you can balance yourself with more clarity and more space, and then others can receive from you more intensity, more fulfillment, and more desire, which can help balance the world because everybody else is not communicating in a bit more cold, dry, and insecure way. And by you opening up a little bit in practical and calculative ways, you can give them a bit more security, good vibes, and a sense of reality that comes from the internal realm. On the other side, though, there is the opportunity for you to create new ways to think and communicate about reality, or that are very serious, derived only from deep desires. So you can create new mental routines or new patterns in your associations and networking that are too dirty, that are too emotional, too dark, too destructive. But in the end of the day, it will be easier to manage a little bit these situations because Mars is exalted in Capricorn and Mars is currently in Capricorn. So our minds are naturally a bit more surrounding and made of passion, motivation, aggressiveness, and frustration. So even if you are a bit more destructive, intense, scary, or emotional in your communications in realms of reality, you and others will quote unquote forgive that, or it's easier for them to understand, and instead of being mad and rejecting it, both you and people in your surroundings more likely will try to create a new way to think and communicate about your desires and their desires in a clear, direct, but intentionful and sophisticated way, while still being very emotional and intense. And actually, even though there is some opportunity for clashes and explosions, maybe you, even perhaps by mistake, expressing a certain desire or insecurity or just something that was deep within you, you might remember others or make others easier to indulge and communicate about certain desires, certain intentions, certain purposes that slowly but surely they created new layers of earth responsibility, for an example, on top of those things. And the desire, the dream, the intention, slowly but surely kept being surrounded, limited by responsibility, status, being correct, trying to protect something, trying to protect yourself. And now Scorpios have the opportunity to communicate. And also remember, Scorpio is fixed water, so when we say communicate, it might be through signs, body language, or just vibes, just a look. Because Scorpio has really fixed vibes, so they can very easy be thrown or shown to others in more subconscious ways while still being effective. So you have now the opportunity to bring that into others and yourself in a more communicative but practical way. And you can remind others that perhaps are too deep into constantly updating and creating new routines and patterns, new responsibilities, new pressures within their mind and their associations. You might remind them now of a certain purpose and dream that they had and still have. So then there is the opportunity to start a realistic process in realms of business and practicality in your personal way, or in their personal way, or in more expanded realms of society, to slowly but surely incorporate the desire, the dream, and the deep intention into a practical and realistic scenario. So that is not just accumulating inside, that is just not fixed in your core set of values without seeing the broad daylight. The goal is to bring that into the world in a constructive, patient, and progressive way. And now there is the great opportunity to initiate conversations, relationships, and ways to think and communicate that can help bring the deep Scorpio into structure, business, and practicality. And your tarot card is the Princess of Pentacles. This means creating a new internal way to deal with reality, structure, responsibility, and also creating a new internal way to be efficient, profitable, and secure. And because it's Mercury in Capricorn reading, this means that you are creating a new way to think and communicate those internal processes, or you already created them, you already started to create them before, and now you can think about them more clearly, you can see them in a more logical and structured way, and you can actually act on them, you can bring them to others, and you can associate this into others, so you can help also others process better reality and structure in an internal way. So this can be you can give support to others with your deep emotional savory. You can help others feel stronger, feel more fulfilled, feel more bountiful about reality, or you just creating you yourself a more unique and personal process to withstand or expand your responsibilities, practicality, profit, and structure. But in the end of the day, this is, I think, more towards you being aware, you being able to see and logically, clearly understand the new way that you created or are creating right now to deal and withstand reality, structure, limits, and boundaries. If you have Sun, Moon, Rising, or Jupiter in Sagittarius, you are fatally attracting Mercury in Capricorn in 2025 and 2026. This means you can give the world of communicating and thinking about structure, routine, and pattern in a new practical way, a more associative and mutable way to have wisdom, faith, knowledge, and spirituality, and you can receive from this energy a more creative, practical, and high standard way to think and communicate about yourself and your structure, reality, and responsibilities. So this means you can still bring help, but still feel rejected and receive a cold shoulder, but that doesn't mean your help didn't reach. That doesn't mean your message wasn't heard. It just means that people now are taking a bit more time to adapt to new ways of thinking and communicating, while that being the goal, because Capricorn is more earth element, and it's the internal side of Saturn. So it needs some securities, it needs to be sure sometimes, it needs some practicality, it needs some time, literally. So it's not because your wisdom and knowledge, your expressiveness about spirituality or creativity or religion, for an example, that doesn't mean that it didn't reach, the message wasn't heard. It just means they're taking their time. And on the other side, you might feel smothered, controlled, or that your freedom is being taken away because others or yourself are expecting you or complying with certain expectations to be more practical, resilient, and serious in thinking, communicating, and analyzing. And actually, this can give you more freedom because now you know where it's really profitable or not to communicate in more real and serious ways about your spirituality, faith, and beliefs. So instead of kind of being insecure or afraid to be rejected because you don't know how people's reaction will be to your expressiveness and association of spirituality, for an example, you now can learn how to discern value or how others value your message, your wisdom, knowledge, and personal testimonies. So you can be like, oh, those people, I can go this far, I can be this spiritual. With those group of people, I have to be more realistic. I can't be so out there. Oh, those people, they are already tired of hearing about reality, structure, business. So they need my spirituality, they need my faith and my ability to expand. So here it's a fatal attraction, it's a very close energy to each other. It's a very continuous exchange of freedom and spirituality from Sag to Capricorn, and then a gift to be creative and more resilient in reality and structure that Capricorns are giving to Sagittarius. But Mercury rules Gemini, which opposes Sagittarius, and rules Virgo, that squares Sagittarius. So even though Capricorn fatal attracts Sagittarius, because we're talking about Mercury, there might be some elements of opposition or extreme balance. And sometimes there might be some clashes, but that doesn't mean war or battle or you going against somebody. You just might be really not understanding, or them might just be really not understanding what's going on, and you get defensive or excited because Mars is exalted in Capricorn and it's there right now. But let's focus on Mercury here, because Sagittarius don't really do well with Mercury. They don't really do well. I mean, it's not like they can't, it's more like they don't want to. Pisces is more like they can't. Sagittarius is more like they don't want to, because they feel dry. They feel like their spirituality was taken away. They feel like there is not enough connection, not enough personal boundaries being melted together in order to create some sort of sustenance, feeling of being spiritually high, or a feeling of just excitement. So Sagittarius here are going through a double learning lesson, if you know what I'm saying. At the same time, they're learning how to be more structured and realistic, and also being more logical and cold when thinking, communicating, and analyzing their wisdom and spirituality in realms of practicality and structure. Or they are learning how to think in a new and realistic way about their own and others' status and value. So maybe Sagittarius now, they are just receiving not even a process, because that process was already being done and now it's completed, now it's materialized, and you suddenly realize, oh, that thing was not that valuable. Oh, that relationship was actually very valuable. Let me go a bit more into that. Oh, actually, me expressing my spirituality or my faith to those people is not that profitable. Or maybe I should apply more limits and boundaries in my expressions and communications, because I'm giving too many of my pearls to the swines and they don't even understand they are pearls. They're just gobbling it. You know what I'm saying? And it can be a bit scary. Might be like, oh shit, I spent so much time in a non-profitable relationship or conversation. Or you might be like, oh damn, that shit was really profitable. That person really had good ideas. They really upheld me when it comes to responsibility. and I kind of separated from them because I needed space. Let me go back. And it's the opportunity to create or renovate, innovate responsibilities in areas of conversations and the relationships as well. So if you're not totally separated, and maybe you can come back from a totally separated relationship to make things more stable and real. And your tarot card for this transit is the Three of Cups. This means you are being more aware, so this can be you completing slowly but surely, piece by piece, a new puzzle, a new awareness, or you might be receiving this information to make you aware of new things, or in a more expanded way about things that you already knew that are about or come from the emotional, spiritual, subconscious, and deep desires realm. So you can be more aware of certain emotional and subconscious patterns of yourself in areas of reality and practicality, or others can reflect that back to you via communication or body language, or others might just tell you, hey bro, I've been noticing this pattern about you. I've been noticing you feeling in a certain way. I've been noticing you, maybe you're not expressive as much. You were Sagittarius, why not so expressive? Because maybe you're a bit too lost, or you were just creating something better, but you were more internal because you're spending more time in this emotional and subconscious realm, or you're creating a new realization that you have to be more aware and pay more attention to your own internal realm, to your own emotional processes, in order to be more sophisticated, profitable, and secure in thinking and communicating in areas that deal with business and status. Or others are just coming up with their own conclusion, creating up their own awarenesses and images about your emotional realm. But I wouldn't say this is like people from very far away when it comes to your personal life, because 3 comes out of 2, comes after 2, and 2 comes after 1. So 1 is you, the individual, 2 is you relating with somebody and with things around you, and then 3 is you being a part or creating a sense and awareness of what's surrounding you. So the Three of Cups is usually coming from people, places, and things where you were there, or you personally had a conversation, or you had a conversation with somebody around you, and then they had a conversation with somebody that is close to them, and then they created an awareness, or they are starting to create a new awareness about your emotions and feelings when it comes to realms of reality and structure. Or this just means as well that you are creating a more realistic way to see, think, and communicate about emotions and feelings in general, and that can lead you to a moment where now you have a very good, efficient, and practical way to think, communicate, and analyze your spirituality, your faith, and your wisdom in a way that is profitable and efficient while having emotional security, background, and backbone. If you have Sun, Moon, Rising, Saturn, or Mars in Capricorn, you are conjuncting Mercury in Capricorn 2025-2026. This means you might be thinking and communicating more about yourself, or more about things that happen in your personal life, or others are just thinking and communicating more about you, or they need/want to have your way to be creative about structure in their life, so they feel or are more secure, stable, realistic, and profitable in their own way of thinking, communicating, and analyzing about status, business, and organization. Also, this means you might be thinking too much about yourself in a way that it might create some insecurities, some limits, or you might have this higher or lower sense of status and value about yourself than what it really is, because it's in your element. Especially Sun is there, Mars is there as well, so you're bringing more attention and more passion or frustration to your own life, to yourself, to your internal realm, to the realm around you, to your reality, to your structure, to how you think/feel about how others think/feel about your value, responsibility, organization, and responsibilities. So you might think that others think that you are not valuable enough, or you might think that others think that you are very valuable, and they might want to take things from you or understand how you achieve that, and you might not want to be sharing all that much. You might not wanting to be fighting and so you apply limits and boundaries to stop communication. Or on the other extreme way, because Mars is exalted in Capricorn and it's there right now, you can see yourself as too good, too upper status, too sophisticated, too valuable to connect with certain group of people, certain types of classes, or certain type of clients and business in a more natural way. This just means you might be more self-aware, and you might be more intelligent, clear, and structured when it comes to showing your personality, uniqueness, individuality, emotions, feelings, and structure. Then it will depend if you have specifically Sun, Moon, Rising, Saturn, or Mars. If you have Sun in Capricorn, you'll be thinking and communicating more about your actions, expressions, and visions that are new and creative in realms of reality and structure. If you have Moon in Capricorn, you might be thinking and communicating more about your emotions, feelings, and attractions in new, private, sophisticated, and profitable ways. If you have Rising in Capricorn, you might be thinking and communicating in new and realistic ways about what's happening in your personal life and in your personal environment, or about your personal interests and insecurities. If you have Saturn in Capricorn, you might be thinking and communicating more about structure, reality, limits, boundaries, and what you have achieved so far and what you have not achieved so far. And you have Mars in Capricorn, you might be going too aggressive, too animalistic, too spiritual, and too creative with your communication, analysis processes, and ways to think about and in reality and structure. And if you have Mars in Capricorn also, and you might be a more balanced individual, others might still receive your communications and your ideas like it is coming from a more animalistic, creative, and intense points of view. And like I said earlier, this might mean also that people are just communicating more about you, they're thinking more about you, and they are now judging a bit more the logicality, efficiency, and the level of energy that you are giving into how you are organized, into how you are practical, and into how you got into your status, or how your status changes the way that others approach you. And the tarot card for you guys is the Five of Pentacles. This means more emotional, more sentimental, more attachment, more purpose, more fulfillment, but also more insecurity, illusion, and attachment in the wrong way about circumstances, routines, patterns, limits, boundaries, networking, and association. And because it's Mercury, we always have to use the mutable energy, so others might be more attached, delusional, or sentimental about you and your role in their stability, in their reality, in their practicality, in their ability to be responsible. So this can be good for you personally, because you might find a deeper purpose, a deeper commitment, a deeper reasoning behind your routines, patterns, and responsibilities, and then you create a new way to think and communicate that is more real and structured to accumulate those new purposes. Or you might be too attached, too insecure, and too sensitive, and you might not be able, or you might go against new conversations, ideas, and relationships in areas of support, business, and structures, and that can happen for others as well. But I'm feeling a bit more that others might be communicating, thinking, and analyzing in more realistic and serious ways the want and need that they have about you in their life. And that can create some aggressiveness and frustration if they think they can't do something without you, or if they think they are too dependable about you. And that's because Mars is in Capricorn. And also, they might be like, oh, I can do this without you, and that makes them happy, and they can go extreme with that. They can reward you too much, they can invade your space too much, they can talk too much about you to others because you're so good to them, or you're so supportive and organized and you help them feel safe. Or they might just completely rely on you and themselves not building a new sophisticated and sufficient way to think and analyze about business, and then you end up with more responsibilities, and you end up with your limits and boundaries not respected. And because it's Five of Pentacles, you then might feel emotionally responsible or emotionally connected to uphold that new way to associate with those individuals that really enjoy the support and the responsibility that you give to them. And you might end up drained, you might end up exhausted, you might end up not as logical, not as clear as you want it to be. So it's also good if you can create here a new realistic way to apply your limits and boundaries, that it's still subtle, good, sophisticated, and careful. So you show the care about the situation, like I know you need me, or I know you have something good working together, that it's real, stable, private, efficient, interesting, but I need my limits and boundaries to be respected. And as a Capricorn, you can learn that from Aquarius. Aquarius sometimes go too hard on expressing their limits and boundaries because Mercury is exalted in Aquarius, but they're still ruled by Saturn, and then Uranus is there, bringing that extra will to go against something and to repel something. So sometimes Aquariuses, they don't even need to. Maybe sometimes don't even, like, I'm an Aquarius myself, sometimes that just happens, like, it just comes out of your mouth. Hey, who do you think I am? Hey, who you think this is? Hey, you're not making this fair. Hey, you're not respecting my ways of thinking. Hey, why you can't think like that? Hey, why you can't accept my ideas? Hey, why you asking so much from me? And sometimes people are just chilling and vibing around the Aquariuses. Sometimes people are just making a joke. Sometimes they're just talking about the possibility, and the Aquarius get really serious really quickly, but then they can also go back really quickly to being fun and entertaining. But what Capricorns can learn is to express and uphold on an external level their limits and boundaries, because sometimes Capricorns, they uphold their limits and boundaries internally by being moody, by talking too much with their cousin Taurus, or by creating mental blockages and self-sabotaging energies, aka they spending too much time with their homeboy Virgo over there in the corner, and they conjuncting about what dude did in the corner over there, what girls dude did last week, how dude got more money now, how dude's parents got a new house, or how the house is falling apart and the dude should have their parents, and they start conjuncting. So don't do that, don't get moody, don't start conjuncting, be more clear, upfront and external, because you already have the emotional background and backbone, you already have the attachment and the fulfillment. You now just need to balance things with some clarity and some fresh air, because the opposing and also balancing side of water is air, because water is the feminine side of the internal realm, and Aquarius is the external side, the expressive side of the external realm, while Earth is the internal side of the external realm, and Fire is the external side of the internal realm. So Fire and Earth share at least one aspect, while Water and Air, they share no aspects. But you already have the 5, which is more water, emotions, pleasure, care, sophistication, and you might be too convoluted, you might be creating new relationships, new conversations that makes you and others too connected, too attached, caring too much, even delusioned by a promise or a sense of safety. And now you gotta be like, hey, I don't think that's real, and that's why. It's not, I want to still be with you together doing this business, doing this practicality, but we need to do this a bit less and do that a bit more. And that's because I want progress, not because I'm against you, not because I think it's wrong for you to need me. I don't think it's wrong you using me, but we need more progress, we need more space, we need more uniqueness, we need more individuality, we need more flexibility, for an example. So make it not personal, because the circumstance is already personal. You just want to make it more realistic, more communicative, and lighter. For an example, if you have Sun, Moon, Rising, Mercury, Uranus, or Saturn in Aquarius, you are fatal attracting Mercury in Capricorn 2025 and 2026. That means you can receive from new ways of thinking and communicating more structure and more responsibility, and you can give to new ways of communicating about structure and business more consistency, more uniqueness, individuality, rebelliousness, opposition, while being flexible and responsible. This is especially important for Aquariuses because Capricorn is the internal side of Saturn, and Aquariuses are also ruled by Saturn, being the external side. So Aquariuses here have the opportunity to initiate more purposeful, more profitable, more personal, and more caring, while being real and structured ways to think, communicate, and analyze, or ways to interpret others' thoughts, ideas, and communications, or just here the opportunity to make conversations and interactions more realistic, more important, and more organized. Also, it means that Aquariuses might be already better or developing a better way to communicate their limits and boundaries, their goals and achievements, in a way that it doesn't sound so opposing, weird, and rebellious, and instead it will sound more purposeful, caring, and with more commitment. And this can be literally changing how you think and communicate, or changing to whom and to when you think and communicate those things. So here you might be learning the right timing, the right measurement to know where and to whom communicate, or you're learning how much and how intensely you can communicate your limits and boundaries, goals and achievements to somebody else. Also, others can receive from Aquariuses clear vision, seeing things from a higher perspective, being mentally stronger, consistent or stubborn, and just being more creative, unique, and individual when it comes to think, communicate, and analyze in realms of purpose, in realms of business, status, networking, and association. And your tarot card for Mercury in Capricorn 2025 and 2026 is Cardinal Fire, King of Wands. This means you can be a great support when it comes to being spiritual, creative, passionate, or frustrated in realms of thinking and communicating about or in spaces of business, structure, networking, and association. This means also you can now create and communicate your limits and boundaries, for an example, from a place of origin that is more personal, more spiritual, and more real. Because what's really real, it's what's spiritual, because reality comes out of the spirit. And if you are here living bounded by reality, there is really no purpose in living, you're just existing and you want to live. So by living is living from your spirit, learning how to bring your intentions, purposes, dreams, and even illusions into places of reality and structure. And no better way to do that than with Mercury in Capricorn, because you can communicate and associate yourself with teammates that are more real and they care about your purposes and your spirituality, and you and them together are learning or already know how to make that profitable, safe, and predictable without killing the spirituality or the innovation. So it can be a great support to yourself and to others when it comes to thinking, communicating, and analyzing your intentions, your creativity, your potential in realms of business, structure, and reality. Also, it can mean that through your communication, it's easier for others to see where you're coming from with your limits and boundaries. It's easier for others to understand the purpose, the care, and the seriousness of your uniqueness and individuality, of your routines and patterns. Also, it means you have the opportunity to create new ways to be more real and serious about your spirituality and your personal goals. On the other side, others might see you as too bossy, too intense, and they might recognize that you are a good example, that you are helping them out, but they might be too proud, or they don't want to give you the recognition. That happens a lot with Aquariuses, where Leos get a lot of recognition and attention. Aquarius sometimes they get the opposite, even though others know, and the Aquarius themselves know, that they deserve recognition. Others will not give that to the Aquarius because the Aquarius looks almighty and looks like they think they're better than others. Most cases, the Aquarius just know their value, and they know that even though they don't know something, they can learn it quickly and they can become whatever they need to be without losing their individuality. But for most people and energies, knowing your value can seem like you are above themselves, because most people struggle to see value in themselves, especially in a realistic and consistent way. So what can happen here is Aquarius gives that example for others to create new ways to think and communicate that are more real and structured to sustain and bring to them new senses that value, that prove their value and their worth to themselves and the world around them. But because they didn't have that before, and they seeing the Aquarius as the example, they might get arrogant or insecure and mistreat the Aquarius or not give the Aquarius a support or a reward or attention or recognition, because they feel like now that they've developed such sense of value, such sense of personal authority, the Aquarius is stepping on their limits and boundaries, or that the Aquarius only did that because they thought they were superior. But that mostly can come from for people that are insecure or too prideful or too resented about something in their life. Most likely, this is a good opportunity for Aquariuses to find teammates and people that can support them or that they really want to support if they relate to the inspiration, because not all of Aquariuses will reach the same people in the same way. So you can now, as an Aquarius, identify and relate with, in a more practical and business-like way, people that want to be unique, they want to be original, and they want to have more control about their reality, practicality, limits, boundaries, responsibilities, and security without sacrificing creativity, spirituality, and innovation. So you now, Aquarius, be yourself, but remember, it's Mercury in Capricorn, so creating more realistic, structured, and organized ways to think and communicate. So through those ways, you show your individuality, your uniqueness, your unique way to think, communicate, and analyze about structure, reality, and the world. And also, very important, show how to be free while having structure. Show that it's okay to think by yourself, and show that it's okay to express them, and you should be a bit more, not opposing, but like clashing. Because clashing, discussing something, going with mental duels is not bad. People are just too sensitive about them. Because that's how you really create a stable common ground. And when I say clash, I don't say brutally clash, aggressively clash, just clash. Because it's two extremes. People either too sensitive or they too aggressive when it's about discussing, exchanging ideas, clashing ideas, right? But the Aquarius now can show that it's okay to do that and that you should do that a bit more. So you know who you are in a clear and real way, and others know who they are in a clear way, and you know who they are in a clear way. Because that's the only way to, not the only, but one of the only ways to really create a common ground, to show all parties uniqueness and individuality. So once you show that, you can be seen as a support in realms of business, structure, or in your personal business, right? And then others that will react to that in a positive way, others that will thank you for your support, for your example, others that will start to act in their own way through a way that you taught them, but in their own method, they will be the teammates you want to associate with, or that you can like relate a bit more. Because even though they might not even have the same interests as you, they might not even be in the same areas of business as you, they want to create new limits and boundaries, new networking and association through the mental realm and conversations that incorporate and use as a base spirituality, uniqueness, creativity, and their personality. And that's very important for Aquariuses. Sometimes people say Aquariuses don't reach their potential just because Aquariuses don't want to teammate and be a part of dead-ass, soulless groups, jobs, and organizations. So it's very important for Aquariuses right now to use this opportunity to identify parts of themselves and people around them that they can at least consider not just friends, but like relatable. Because sometimes Aquariuses, they be talking with people, they be spending time with people that they're not even relating to them. They don't really care about whatever they care about, because they're not caring about real stuff in the perspective of the Aquarius. But with the King of Wands, you can be that example. Look at my creativity, look at my individuality, look at my originality, look at my rebellious energy, look at me changing the world, being my goddamn self, trying something new, upholding my value. And then when you see others responding to that in a positive way, you know that's somebody that I can count on, or at least I can relate to them. I can consider them somewhat of an equal. And that's very important for Aquariuses, having teammates that are a part of the cause, whatever the cause is, but having teammates that are a part of the cause, but they don't need to be always there. They don't need to be always at the headquarters. Sometimes they're not even a part of the organization. They have their own organization, but they share a cause, they share a purpose, they share the ability or the want to express uniqueness, individuality, rebelliousness, opposition, and change. So Aquarius is here through realistic conversations or more serious mindsets. You can be a great example and support to be more spiritual, creative, passionate, or frustrated about business, structure, responsibility, or your personal business. If you have Sun, Moon, Rising, Neptune, Venus, and Jupiter, or Jupiter in Pisces, you are now sextiling Mercury in Capricorn for 2025 and 2026. This means an opportunity to create more realistic, serious, and structured ways to think, communicate, and analyze. Also, it means that others are creating more serious, realistic, and valuable ways to think, communicate about, and with you in the realms of your creativity, originality, dreams, illusions, and imaginations. Also, on the negative side, it means you can create new realistic thoughts out of illusions, dreams, and nightmares. That can also be good, as it means you can make a dream real in your head, and then by communicating, you're making it more real, or you make more people agree and see the reality of your dream. Also, you might create new realistic thoughts and ideas to justify toxic circumstances or to keep them around you because you think it's valuable, or it's easier for you to receive new real justifications so you can keep yourself into a toxic or draining circumstance. But in the end of the day, I feel more light, more bright about this sextile. I think it's a great opportunity even for people that are too logical or too business minded, and business in general, to have an opportunity to see dream, illusion, imagination, spirituality, faith, and belief in a more practical and valuable way. Also for Pisces, you guys are mutable water inside, internal side of Jupiter. So you receive things from the outside, you absorb them, and then you associate yourselves with them, especially if it is some type of wisdom, knowledge, or spiritual belief system. So now you have an opportunity to be more realistic, more judgmental, with more standards, and having more filtering systems to what you consider real, valuable, secure, and sophistication in the realms of spirituality, religion, emotional sharing, emotional purpose, dreams, illusions, and imaginations. So you have the opportunity to basically build a stronger filtering system to decide what's real or not, what's valuable or not, when you are associating and being mutable with yours and others' feelings and emotions, dreams and illusions, wisdom, knowledge, and spiritual belief systems. And also you have the opportunity to create new realistic ways to communicate and associate in a practical, sustained, and structured ways your feelings, your emotions, your dreams, and your illusions. And your tarot card for this transit is the Two of Pentacles. This means that you have the opportunity to create more relatable, but also more personal and more unique relationships, conversations, networking, and associations about business, structure, practicality, and safety. Also, that means you might be looking for, prioritizing, filtering, specifically to look for more real, consistent, and responsible conversations, patterns, or subjects, topics of conversation. Also, this might mean you have the opportunity to find more relatability, to find more and better partners, or just interactions in general in realms of reality, structure, and business. Also, you might find more support or help to deal with responsibilities limits and boundaries when it comes to thinking, communicating, and analyzing? Or are you just matching better ideas with feelings? Or are you just creating better connections between your mind when it comes to reality, structure, and business? Or others are more attracted to you and they want to conversate with or about you more in terms of reality and structure, or in areas that involve business, networking, and association. And in the end of the day, that kind of makes sense. Mercury, communicating, Capricorn, earth element, but it's about creating. So you are creating maybe a new way to judge which conversations or relationships are efficient or profitable, or you just literally creating new conversations and relationships in areas of business, structure, and organization, or you just finding a way to relate, or others finding a way to relate to your status, business, and sense of productivity, value, and sophistication, or you're just feeling a bit lighter, more flexible, and more open to think, communicate, and analyze in or about business, structure, and practicality. But keep in mind again, this is a creation process. You're starting to create this, or you're just now being aware of this. And now you are integrating that into your mind, into your routines, into your patterns, or others might suddenly realize or start now slowly to realize that you are actually more real, more valuable, and more practical than you used to look like. Now they want to approach you, or because there was a new subject of conversation, there was maybe a new person coming into a relationship or into a conversation, and then you communicating to that person made that other person see you or think about you in a more realistic and practical way. Also, this might have some negatives because you are creating this process. At start you might be insecure, you might be unsure, you might be nervous, or you might not be interested or not care about business and structure. So you might be missing some opportunities, or others might be disappointed or aggressive at you because you're not picking their standards, or you might not yet be applying the right limits and boundaries in your conversations. So you're letting others scry and go too much into your energy, dreams, and illusions. Or you might be bringing illusion, nightmare, and emotional confusion and spiritual lostness to conversations and responsibilities in the realms of reality and practicality. But in general, I'm feeling more the positive side coming here, helping you Pisces find more real, practical, stable, profitable, organized, and with good limits and boundaries conversations and relationships, so you can make your dreams true, efficient, and balanced. And also you can support others in this creative process, because everybody now is creating some new thoughts or ideas, conversations, and ways to associate themselves in reality, structure, and business, or they are creating new ways to think about themselves or others in more valuable and productive ways, more serious and responsible ways. And you can help them go through the creation, the birth process, or the growing pains by sharing with them in a new creative and realistic ways your vibe, your dreams, your illusions, by absorbing, by fusing, being mutable with their emotions and feelings, their faith and beliefs, their illusions and dreams. You will help them feel more at ease, have more faith, be more pronoic, and just have more justifications to prove them the value of taking certain leaps of faith, or to change certain aspects of their mind and relationships as well, to achieve a more spiritual and fulfilled, yet real and structured way to think, communicate, and analyze about themselves, value, and structure. And that's everything for today. I hope now you know how you are reacting, or the best way to create new ways to think, communicate, and analyze in more realistic, structured, and responsible ways, or in more internal, business-like, and status-dependent situations and areas. Thank you for watching, it's really appreciated. I wish you the best thoughts, ideas, feelings, and emotions. and a whole bunch of individuality, creativity, and responsibility as well. See you on the next video!